lot of work to be done, of course. Last spring we published Helsinki Climate Roadmap. I took a couple of them with me. I don't know where they disappeared, but there was about 50 examples of this. There we try to explain to politicians and also to general public what could each individual do in order to minimize our climate footprint. There are many practical advice, and also we have collected all the things that Helsinki City has been doing during the past years. We found some 800 different projects and different decisions that had an impact on climate change, and we kind of put them together to this climate roadmap. As I mentioned, we want to be carbon neutral by 2050, and emissions from the city area should be diminished by 30% by year 2020, and we have almost reached that target. Also emissions from energy production reduction with 20%, that has already almost been reached. Okay, our vision for 2050 is that we want to have a new climate-friendly modes of business, and we want to have also a green environment that promotes the health and well-being of residents. That's not a very easy task as the city is growing so fast, but I think that our city planning is doing a very good work in this respect. And we want that energy would be produced in a carbon neutral way, and that we would have the world's best energy efficiency. We are also doing quite many projects with rain and meltwater, how to treat them, how they could be used in parks and gardens, and so that they wouldn't go to the wastewater treatment plants. And we are aiming at a dense urban structure, and that of course helps us in generating low transportation emissions in Helsinki. Some ongoing energy saving projects. We have a so-called energy renaissance in suburbs. We have a lot of buildings that have been built in 50s and 60s, and now they are about to need some renovation. And we want to increase the energy efficiency of this building in a significant way. We have also published some let's say, practical guidance how to do it, and also some possibilities how to get finance for this work. Yes, of course we have several advisory services and campaigns in this respect. And what comes to our own buildings, city buildings, we aim at nearly zero energy guidelines. For example, the building of Helsinki Environment Center, in which I work, is now carbon free this year, and it's the most energy efficient building of Finland actually, even it's already 4 years old, and I think that's a pity. I would like that someone would be better, but no one has done that so far. Yes, Helsinki is producing now heat and power in a very efficient way, as it combines the production of electricity, production of heat, and also cooling. And this system saves about 40% of fuels compared to normal system. We are increasing slowly the use of renewable energy sources. It's now only 7%, but it's going to be 20 by 2020. Actually, probably tomorrow a very important decision will be made in this respect. The city council will probably decide to close our biggest energy plant, Hanasaari, and that means that use of coal in Helsinki will decrease by 2/3. So a big big difference, but decision will be made tomorrow, so I can't be 100% sure if this is the case, but I'm almost 100% sure that this will be the decision. Yeah. One simple example is Katrivala heating and cooling plant, which is the biggest plant in the world of this kind. It uses the waste energy from the wastewater of Helsinki. It takes the heat out from it, and sometimes during summer, if it's very hot in Helsinki, that can also sometimes happen. That then this can be used vice versa, so that it gives cooling energy to the city. It's about 80% more energy efficient than let's say normal plant would be. We are going to have guidelines for locating wind power in the city area. We had a study that showed that most people want to have more wind power in the city, and that's what is going to happen in Helsinki as well. We try to adapt to increasing rainfall and flooding, and of course the methodologies, requirements and guidance for more energy efficient buildings are being created. We'll try to create a global reference area for smart and clean solutions, and there we have quite a good collaboration between cities, businesses and government. This project was launched in March this year, and now we have already some 80 companies, big companies or universities, research institutes there, and they have done some 150, let's say, agreement on what they are going to do in this respect. And of course mobility issues, building and water supply, energy efficiency, consumer and clean tech are subject of this kind of picture of every single house of Helsinki, and you can see whether your house is losing energy from rooftop and compare it to your neighbor if you want to. And also a similar exercise was made of the solar potential of the rooftops, that every single person in Helsinki can look how his or her apartments is doing in this respect, whether to put solar panels on the roof or not. Ongoing in mobility, city tolling is a high, let's say, political issue or hot political issue, but I'm sure that we are moving to that direction. We are doing lots of work concerning the mobility as a service. We want to increase walking and biking. I, for example, bike every day to my work, but it's very far from the Copenhagen figures that I would like to have same situation in Helsinki as well.
Now, with response to the political will, now I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think since we last met at such an event, I think we have seen an awful lot of sensitisation, and I think the media exposes have put it on the agenda at levels it's not hitherto been. We can only hope that it carries on. I believe that the cooperation which has been shown in some of the famous cases and the recent arrests indicates that it is moving forward much quicker than I would have thought it would do.
One of the specific question that I have, and in a way it's a question to the whole audience, is do we have the necessary political will to do something on the criminal issues of this problem? Now, on IUU fishing, there's a lot of political statements through the African Union and different regional organizations, the European Union, probably in ASEAN as well. I would think that they have different statements on IU, but we are lacking similar statements on these issues, the criminal issues of this problem. So my question is, do we have enough political will and understanding of the problem that we are discussing here to move this forward? Thank you.
We had the possibility at one stage that the funder might land somewhere in Durban or Cape Town. If we had the LACER provision, we would have been able to arrest immediately and take action in South Africa. Just an example of what the LACER provision can do. And then the third maybe suggestion, question, if Marcus can maybe quickly react to it. If we bring in a LACER provision, why is the LACER provision, why must we limit it to saying fish products or wildlife products coming that was harvested in contravention of the laws of another country? Why not say any fish that was harvested in contravention of the laws of another country or in contravention of any international or regional fisheries agreements? Then you make it even wider and more effective.
You know, it may actually do that, and I used a shorthand. There's a whole set of action verbs and nouns in the Lacey Act, and so I went right to the issue of something's harvested, but it's something like harvested, transported, exported, you know, and a whole big set of action verbs, and then the list of underlying laws that you violate include laws and regulations, and it may include U.S. treaties as well. So I believe, for example, CAMLAR would count, but you don't hold me to that.
Another very, very useful thing with the post-state control regime, which I use very often whenever confronted with any kind of suspicion of any kind of illegal activities on behalf of a reefer vessel, is that the information about these vessels that have been detained is very easily available on the internet. Each MOU provide you with a list, and so whenever I have some concern about the vessel, I'm thinking, okay, let's check this out. What is the profile of this vessel? And sure enough, there I can find every single port that this vessel has been inspected in, whether there has been any deficiencies reported, within what amount of time has been fixed and so forth. And when you see some of these reefers and they have 13 defects, etc., well, then that tells you something about what kind of company is behind this, what kind of vessel it is. Now, if we could have that for fishing vessels as well, it would give us really a wealth of information to profile the operators that we are dealing with.
And indeed, it's something that South Africa is actually looking very seriously into. We have even had the Torremolinos Convention, which is actually making sure that the vessels need to have the AIS to ensure that we are able to track these fishing vessels in our coastline. We have a monitoring room that's operating 24 hours at SAMSA, and I think starting from that we can even collaborate with DAF, with their control room, and try to implement it, have those stringent measures in place. And I think once we ratify that convention, we will be even in a better position to regulate those fishing vessels, even those that comes into South Africa.
I firmly believe that if you do have a suspected IUU vessel, you should actually allow it into your port, and then you can apply the full range of your domestic law to that vessel and thorough investigation and inspection of that vessel. If it's got fish on board, you don't necessarily need to allow them to unload the fish, and you can conduct that investigation, and then you come up with a lot of evidence, a lot of information about who beneficial owners are, where the product might be going, or associated persons. Then if you're unhappy with it, leave port. So for those that are looking at port state measures, I'd encourage you to allow them into your ports so that you can then apply the full suite of domestic law. Once they're outside the port, once they're on the high seas, we're limited. Once you've got them in your domestic jurisdiction, you've got far more power.
Another very, very useful thing with the post-state control regime, which I use very often whenever confronted with any kind of suspicion of any kind of illegal activities on behalf of a reefer vessel is that the information about these vessels that have been detained is very easily available on the internet. Each MOU provide you with a list, and so whenever I have some concern about the vessel, I'm thinking, okay, let's check this out. What is the profile of this vessel? And sure enough, there I can find every single port that this vessel has been inspected in, whether there has been any deficiencies reported, within what amount of time has been fixed and so forth. And when you see some of these reefers and they have 13 defects, etc., well, then that tells you something about what kind of company is behind this, what kind of vessel it is. Now, if we could have that for fishing vessels as well, it would give us really a wealth of information to profile the operators that we are dealing with.
What would you think of introducing notion of strict liability for certain fisheries crime? We had that in our fisheries law prior to our constitution, and some of that in South Africa at least is possibly unconstitutional, but it could be taken up at international domestic level to work towards strict liability. If you are found at the moment with, say, 5 rock lobster in possession, it's up to you to prove that they weren't taken illegally.
Where you could take away somebody's boat, you could forfeit their fish, you could ban them from the industry, because what you're doing is you're putting the onus on them to comply. And so maybe the simplest example of that is a speeding ticket. Nobody really cares whether you knew you were traveling over the speed limit. The rule is you travel over the speed limit, you have to pay the ticket. And the idea is that it puts the onus on you to stay below the speed limit or around there. Criminal law at its very fundamental level deals with blame. It's society blaming an individual for being bad, doing something that was bad. And so at a very, very fundamental level, I think every legal system that's civilized that I'm aware of, you have 2 components, actus reus and mens rea. And the idea is look, if I pull out a gun and I shoot somebody, am I guilty of murder? And the answer is, well, it depends. If I thought I was shooting at a target and somebody happened to be standing behind the target, do we regret that? We absolutely regret that. Am I guilty of intentionally murdering somebody? I'm not. And that's a very important moral principle that I think we have to embrace. And certainly it would be unconstitutional to have strict liability, I think, in the United States. It's probably not a satisfying answer, but it's fundamental to criminal law. You can regulate society in other ways, but if you're going to use criminal law, strict liability is almost never a possibility. It does happen in the United States in very, very rare circumstances, but it would almost certainly be unconstitutional in a situation like the Lacey Act.
Well, I think you've got a good point, because there is a balance between risk and the consequences. Everyone does risk analysis, so do they. But the risks and the costs may be quite low, because the criminalisation of fisheries crime is not equivalent to the level of criminalisation of the risks for, say, drugs. And it may be well the case that the value of the vessels is not terribly high. And they may be prepared to write those off if they can carry some other ones quite easily. But it also may reach the situation where the vessels are forfeit and they're auctioned. And maybe they can buy them back at a cheaper rate and have a vessel which is free of any issues because it's seen as changed owner. But it may be the same entity, but with a different corporate role. I mean, that happens in the maritime industry, where we've seen vessels being abandoned with a cruise, and the same people have bought them back at auction, which means there's no liens against them, and they can carry on doing it again repeatedly. So there is a risk there as well.
I did a bit of research on the Lacey Act, and I wrote, after the Bengas saga, I wrote a long article in the Cape Times suggesting exactly that because we have wildlife crime generally, as you all know, rhino horn, elephant poaching, and I was hoping it would be taken up, particularly in Vietnam and other Asian countries where our rhino horn, etc. goes. But I got no feedback from a very prominent article in the local media. So I'd like to ask, not on the panel, but I know there's a delegate from at least Indonesia or other Asian delegates, what they see the political hurdles might be to have a Lacey type act in their jurisdictions.
Port state control is really not something that we have been discussing a lot in the fisheries crime context yet. Still, it is such an untapped resource for our ability to conduct routine control and investigations of vessels, or around inspections of vessels. And for those of you that perhaps isn't familiar with port state control, because it doesn't really exist in the fisheries context, it might be worthwhile to give 2 words of background to how the system works. So you got a number of conventions with Bernhard Wiedemann the other day, 7 vessels coming here to Cape Town. Now they were fishing vessels, they're not covered by any. The C-188 that John Midler was speaking about, it would have been a wonderful tool to assist us in ensuring minimum standard. It's not enforced yet, so we can't use that as a basis. Now, on board these vessels, the working and living conditions were horrendous. These vessels were clearly unsafe and unseaworthy. Now, you can spend a lot of time prosecuting the crimes, but you can bring that vessel out of circulation very easily if it's not maintained to certain standards.
The biggest problem that I see is one that we've talked about